Are we watching the stodgy, dusty behavior and habits of the United States Supreme Court actually conspiring against Donald Trump and MAGA and red states who want to redraw their congressional maps to benefit MAGA at the midterms? That's one way of interpreting the fact that we are now in January with another round of decisions having been dropped by the United States Supreme Court, and the one from October that we've been waiting for, where they put the final nail in the Voting Rights Act, allowing red states to redraw their maps to draw out black and brown representation. It's nowhere to be seen. And if it doesn't come soon, it's going to run up against a court developed doctrine called the Purcell Doctrine, where the Supreme Court doesn't want to get its hands dirty with politics so close to an election, so they won't issue a decision. And if court watchers like me are right, and this decision on the Voting Rights Act is not going to really come out until March, April, May, or likely June, there is no way that the maps are going to be able to be redrawn again by these states like Alabama and South Carolina or Georgia or Florida in time for the midterms. Not with all the things that have to be done in advance, like primary ballots and mail-in ballots and the printing up of these things. You can't do it. If in the next month, if by February, we don't have that ruling, there's no way this Voting Rights Act decision can impact this midterm on November 3rd, 2026. I'm Michael Popok. You're on the MeidasTouch Network. Let's look at the stodgy calendaring process, historic for the United States Supreme Court, because they are creatures of habit. You wouldn't know it by the way they're abusing their own shadow docket procedures and making it up as they go along. But here's how it works for the United States Supreme Court in terms of the opening term, the end of the term, the oral arguments, and then the decisions and the decision-making process, and how that is colliding in a negative way for Donald Trump with the calendar. Let's start with the opening of a term, October, first Monday in October, until the last opinion is, last major decision is dropped, which is usually at the end of June, before they go on summer vacation and summer holiday. In between, you have a lot of briefs filing. Most cases, there's about 70 of them, which are up on appeal before the United States Supreme Court on the normal docket, not the shadow docket. Those 70 cases out of tens of thousands in the country that are taken up at the Supreme Court level are generally consist of 3 briefs: the opening brief by the person who's appealing, the middle brief, the opposing brief, and then the reply brief. Then there's a whole bunch of people we call friends of the court who file briefs to kind of get their analysis, get their argument before the United States Supreme Court. It's up to the Supreme Court to accept them. They generally do accept them as long as they're from legitimate organizations. You get law professors, you get Congress people, you get state senators, depends on the issue, but you get a raft of amicus briefs, friends of the court briefs. Then there's oral argument. Every one of these 70 cases, unlike the shadow docket, gets oral argument. During oral argument, it's usually scheduled for 30 to 60 minutes, usually goes 2 hours, okay? And we run them live on Legal AF YouTube. Oral argument, you get a sense of where the 9 justices are. Most of them speak, but not all. Most of them, you'll know right away, generally, where they are in terms of the case. Then they go into the world of deliberation and caucusing, where they determine who's got the majority. What is the majority decision? And who's going to write the majority opinion as assigned by the Chief Justice John Roberts? Then you have, equally important for me, the dissents, especially in the Trump era, and the concurrences. Concurrences are, we agree with the result, but not in how we got there. I agree with certain aspects of the decision, but not all aspects. And the dissent is what it sounds like. We dissent. This is totally wrong. This is against Supreme Court precedent. This will turn democracy upside down, like that. Those get circulated internally. Now, historically, sometimes dissents have become the majority opinion. I mean, this Supreme Court is so ideologically divided that happens almost never with this group. But in the past, what started out as a dissent becomes the majority opinion because the weight of its jurisprudence, of its persuasive argument, converts a vote or two on the Supreme Court. And they're lobbying each other. And They're between their clerks, circulating drafts and going to lunch and talking. They're not sequestered. They're not in cones of silence. They're talking to each other about their cases, the Supreme Court justices. And so they finally get, okay, the majority opinion gets circulated for comment among the majority. The dissenters see it. They write their dissent. There's a call and response between the dissent and the majority opinion and the concurrence. So they all got to get done at the same time. This takes time.
Hey everybody, Ben Meiselas here from the MeidasTouch Network. I wanted to let you know about my podcast partner, Michael Popok's new law firm. It's called the Popok Firm. Michael Popok's pursuing his dream of starting his own law firm, really based on the popular demand by all the Meidas, Mighty, and legal AFers who were approaching Michael Popok with their cases and saying, can you help us? And at that time, Popok was not able to. So he went out on his own. He started the Popok Firm, where he is now handling catastrophic injury cases like car accident cases, trucking cases, malpractice cases, big negligence cases, wrongful death cases. So if you or someone you know have a case like this, the consultation with Popok's firm is free. Give him a call. See if you have a case. It's thepopokfirm.com, thepopokfirm.com, or you can call 877-POPOK-AF, P-O-P-O-K-A-F. So 1-877-POPOK-AF. Give Michael Popok a call. And I'm really proud of you, Popok. Thanks for all the hard work you're putting in.
Now, this oral argument in the Voting Rights Act was back in October. This is only 3 months out. It's pretty short. If the justices were concerned about having this a decision help Donald Trump, they'd have to have issued it right about now, maybe next month. After that, game over. Game over. You start sliding. And the way that historically the Supreme Court has issued its decisions, the first round of decisions, because this is the first round since the court opened in October, are usually technical ones, not what we call major decisions. Major decisions come usually no earlier than March, April, and May, because they take a while. You heard the process that I just described. These are hundreds of pages of decision-making, unlike the shadow docket, which is like a paragraph. So they take time to write, to draft, to print, to circulate. Sometimes they get leaked. We've had a leaky Supreme Court in the past. Give an example. The Dobbs decision, which is took away a woman's right to choose 3 years ago. A draft leaked of what we thought was the majority decision written by Justice Alito in March. We didn't get the actual ruling until June. So you see how long these things take. So March, April, May, or June, where most people think it's going to drop in June, forget it. June to November is no time in the election process world to do primary ballots, do mail-in ballots, set the maps, get people, the candidates, knowing what, if you're creating a new district because the Voting Rights Act has been struck down, you got to have new competitors up against each other and a campaign and time to speak to the American people that you're running for, right? So under the Purcell Doctrine, which is a doctrine from 2006, the court has basically said, while we could rule on this map being violative of the Voting Rights Act or the 14th Amendment, we're not going to, because look at the time. We're just too close to the elections, and we don't want to be involved with politics, even though we know they are. They like to act like they're not at the United States Supreme Court. So unless they're going to throw away their own court-imposed limitations with the Purcell Doctrine, I think, based on the fact it didn't come today. If it came today, it would be extraordinary because they don't drop major decisions in January. It would mean that they really believe that they've got to drop this decision to impact the midterm elections. Now, there are states that have already thrown in the towel. The case that I'm talking about, Louisiana versus Calais, Louisiana has already said, we can't wait anymore. They're printing up ballots based on the maps that were already approved last time, which are slightly better. It creates 2 black districts out of 7 in a state where black and brown representation is about 30%. Well, that's all they're trying to do. They're trying to create a map that matches the demographics of the particular state. But others in South Carolina and Alabama, they're waiting around for the ruling. So they're never going to get around, if this ruling comes out so late, to doing their remapping. Florida and Kentucky, they're like, well, we may remap anyway. So there's a couple of states that may try to remap even without the Voting Rights Act decision coming out. But many of them are waiting for this Calais decision. I mean, 7 out of the 11 states that made up the old Confederacy have primaries that start around May. January to May, March to May, you're getting too close. So we'll be out of the woods, I think, by next month, but we're pretty darn close now. Now, do I think it's MAGA having second thoughts about empowering this presidency? No. Do I think it's more likely it's the Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sotomayor, and Kagan taking their sweet time to write their dissents about a decision that they think is going against the Voting Rights Act? Yes. And you got to wait on it. Yeah. The majority can't go, come on, we're double parked. We want to issue this order. Ketanji Brown Jackson's like, yeah, I'm not done yet. I'm still writing. I'm still responding to your majority, and so there's an incentive for the judges to sort of move ponderously, move methodically at a tortoise-like pace, if you know what I mean, especially when they're in the minority, which they are, and literally. So we're going to continue to follow it all on the MeidasTouch Network. Great news, everybody. Legal AF is on the move, is on the expansion for 2026. Not only are we meeting the moment globally with new commentators, but we just launched 2 new podcasts on audio, one called Unprecedented about the United States Supreme Court, and the other one called Court of History with Sidney Blumenthal and Sean Wilentz for your listening pleasure on audio. We've now added them as part of Legal AF podcast. The American Civil Liberties Union joins us next week for regular reporting about their cases, joining Democracy Forward and the Democratic Attorneys General, all on Legal AF. And with your help, we now have new memberships, paid subscriber memberships, to really support us at a founding level over on Legal AF YouTube, and Legal AF Substack has a paid membership with a 20% off sale going on right now. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.